Hello, welcome to my truck again, which is today parked in the world's most successful failed state, which is, of course, Belgium. I've got reload in Flanders. It's really Flanders and Wallonia. It's actually two countries in essence, in culture, but not according to the United Nations. Great irony, isn't it? That the United Nations recognises a country that is not united. But never, and there's quite a few like that. But um, yeah, so came out here yesterday from the UK, and there are a few hitchhikers on the road um, coming out of the port of Calais, and other truck drivers know what I mean by this. Um, uh, they weren't trying to get on my truck because my truck was not trying to get to the port. I was coming out of the port, but there were some young men who were most likely from Africa by their appearance, who were running around being chased by the CRS, the police, and they were trying to jump on trucks because the weather's bad. Why is the weather affect people trying to smuggle themselves in the UK? Because when the weather's bad, the sea is rough, so they can't try and get across on small boats, and so they return to getting back on trucks. This is a this has been a problem for goodness me 20 years or so. It's crazy, really. That two of the Let's be clear what we're talking about. I was talking rather cryptically. Right, these are people who are illegal immigrants. They're illegal immigrants, and they're in France. Usually because they've come from another country, they smuggle themselves in. They want to claim asylum. They don't want to claim asylum in France. Makes you wonder. But they do want to get to the UK. They feel they will be better off in the UK, and they try to get across on boats quite successfully. It's been happening for the last year or so, um, and before that, they and still they try to attach themselves somehow to people's trucks. Um, this is very bad. It's very dangerous for them. It's incredibly unpleasant for us. I You hear a lot of truck drivers, breathing fire about what they think of the migrants, but really nobody really wants to run anyone over. And big trucks and human bodies don't mix very well, especially when they're trying to attach themselves to the axles. Yes, that happens. And to the frame of the trailer, trying to break into the loads. Um, yeah, this is a big problem. It's one of the main problems of being an international driver. If you're travelling over to the UK, you will see on the back of some trucks of other nationalities, Polish or Lithuanian or whatever, that they will put a sticker on the back in English saying, "We do not go to the UK." If they don't go to the UK, maybe even if they do, to try and let people know that it's not worth trying to smuggle themselves in that truck. Um, we get penalised very heavily if we are caught with these. So I think at the moment it's £2,500 per migrant for the driver, and £2,500 for his trucking company. Um, and this is because there is organised smuggling of migrants across the English Channel, um, and the people smugglers, and they are people smugglers. And if you're from the United States and you're used to, people, the coyotes smuggling the people across the southern border of the United States, this is a very similar situation that's happening in Europe. It's not quite the same scale. It's been happening for a long, long time. Um, anyway, and it's an ongoing battle. So we have to take any number of different steps to try and ensure that the migrants don't get in the back. We double lock the back doors. It will be sealed with a metal seal. None of this is needed to go into France. You understand? Um, you know, the entire trailer is sealed with a TIR cord, which is a cord that goes through all of the loops for the curtain along the side. Um, People can still cut their way in, but if they cut their way in, then it's clear. Also, it makes a big difference where we park. There are places that basically are very dodgy parking. I try to avoid parking anywhere near Calais. And if I park within overnight, this is, or even no, even for a short stop, I would be very careful the next morning. Give everything a thorough look in the back of the trailer, go climb across the load if I have to, make sure nobody's down in between whatever pallets of goods I've got. Um, and as I say, the best thing you can do is not park anywhere near Calais. Calais or Dunkirk or Caen, the port over on towards that side. And you're always trying to fight this. And I talk about people smugglers. I actually saw this the other day. I was in a service station, Cobham Services, on the M25 near London, in a truck parking area, and suddenly I was chucking some rubbish out of my cab into a bin and seeing African people walk alongside my trailer, and who said hello, seemed very happy, and walked past me and very clear about where they were going. Just scooted around all of the back of the trailers in the truck park to try to avoid being seen, unsuccessfully, clearly. And I looked across the parking area, and there was only two other international trucks. One was by another well-known British international haulier. So I went over to the driver and said, "Did they come out of your truck?" He said, "No, I'm not sure where he saw them as well. I'm not sure where they came from." The only other international setup truck was an Italian. At that point, another British truck driver, came over and said, "I just saw that." The Italian pulled up, got out of his cab, walked straight to the back doors of the trailer, opened it up, and let them out. So this was a smuggler, or somebody. Yeah, he's a smuggler. He might be a truck driver otherwise, but he's smuggling people. And us legitimate drivers really don't like this, because of course, you know, if somebody does somehow sneak their way onto the back of my trailer, well, I don't want that to happen. I've tried to take as many steps I can to avoid it, but I'm going to be treated as a smuggler if it happens. Anyway, so in that circumstances, this other driver had already called the police. There's always a traffic police car at Cobham Services, it seems. And the Italian, who clearly had no attempt to stop for his mandatory 45-minute break, he just punched something into his sat nav, and took off. Just went, you know, pretending not to speak any English to us. Oh yeah, maybe he didn't, but he didn't want to talk to us. He just wanted to get going, and he pulled out, but the police car came and pulled him over on the M25. Now, he should be fined. I don't think I should be. I also don't think that UK Border Force should be picking people out of the water and helping them across the channel. So if I help people to cross, or a truck driver helps people to cross the channel, he gets a £2,500 fine, and the Border Force actually help people. This is crazy. It's amazing to think that two of the most developed countries in the world, France and the UK, cannot sort out a problem of teenage vagrants who are walking around. Right? I can only think there's simply not the political will either way. They're content to let us be the victims of the problem, and the people of Calais. This fear of being accused of racism is crazy. Right, you can discriminate between somebody who's merely gaming a human rights system basically. This is what they're doing. They know if they get to Britain, they won't be sent back because they can say, oh, it's against my human rights. They're fleeing persecution. Obviously, nobody thinks they're being persecuted in France. France is a lovely country. It's where people go for their holidays, and it's easily a place where you can claim asylum, as is Greece, as is Spain. But they don't want to live there. They want to live in Sweden, Germany, and Britain. Let's be honest about it. It's as simple as that. And every now and again, the media find some person who is quite clearly a deserving case, who's been terribly persecuted. Okay, right. If we're going to have the policy of giving asylum to such people, let them claim asylum and ship them over. Don't rely on whoever gets to the country first is a legitimate claim for asylum, or if they're not, you manage to let them escape, which is what happens. People know they're not really going to be sent back. I mean, then sent back to where? France, or where they came from? Of course, many of these people lie about where they came from. But again, we had all this problem. We have all of these little vignettes where the Guardian will publish some doctor who's come from Afghanistan and he smuggled himself across on a lorry and now he's living a good life and everything's so much better and he hopes to get the rest of his family out. It's great to have those little stories, but for every one of those stories, there's 1,000 other migrants who are just chancers, who are just trying. They're economic migrants. They're coming out of countries which are crap, and it's probably a good idea to ask why international institutions let these countries get away with these things. And they're taking advantage of the system, and we need to be able to say that. Why can't we just say the truth these days? There are people who are deserving, there are people who are not. Okay, and if the plan is to change the world and make the world a better place by allowing people from failed countries, frankly, and I mean failed governments, to come and live in Great Britain, well, let's do it. Oh yeah, we can't do it because the right wing says the right wing will make it politically impossible. Well, then it's politically impossible what they're doing now, isn't it? It's not. People are not happy politically with all of the people coming across on boats. Okay, why is it that the problem can't be dealt with? Go to France, see who's claiming asylum, and then say to certain people, no, you are never going to be granted asylum, and then some people you can say yes. And if you start doing that, and then anybody who gets across is not a legitimate claim is sent back or sent somewhere other than Britain, which is they just want to come to Britain and then either game the system or get lost in Britain and just go and live in whichever underworld they can find. Okay, that's what's happening. I can only think it's this terror of being called racist because these people had dark skins. There's plenty of people with dark skins who are not trying to ferry themselves across the English Channel. It's not fair on a whole group of people who are voters, at least somewhere, who are being penalised because of this. I feel very sorry for the residents of Calais, especially on that road, the A216, I think, that comes off of the main autoroute and goes straight into the port of Calais, and the areas around the port of Dunkirk and so on as well. I mean, apparently house prices if somebody bought a house 20 years ago in that area, they've lost most of the value of their house. People can't put their washing out on their washing lines, I've been told, because it will be stolen by the migrants. The migrants will steal people's clothes and steal other things as well. You've got an area with a lot of, sometimes thousands of desperate young men, mainly, who you know will get gratification and food and whatever by any means they can find, It's not good for the residents of the areas near the ports. It's terrible for us lorry drivers. I mean, why? I'm not a security guard. Okay, I'm not paid for that. I'm paid to drive a truck. Okay, it should be as simple to get into France. Sorry, as simple to get back into the UK as it is to go into France. Um, why should I have to be constantly thinking, oh, I can't stop in this truck park, I can't stop at this place because I'm going to have people break into my truck. And you think, well, okay, you imagine the situation. It's 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. It's pitch dark. You go and do your checks on your truck, which you do every morning, and you find that there are 5 young men, armed, because mostly they've got knives to cut their way into the curtains of the trailers. Um, uh, who and you, as a sole 53-year-old man, are facing down these 3 guys. Apparently, when they're asked, many of them just get out, and go. Some of them don't. I mean, what do you expect? You somehow you got to run to the cab, lock yourself in, call the police, and wait for them to sort you out. That's sort them out, which they will do. By the way, the French and the Belgian police do take this very seriously, fortunately. But I shouldn't have to face that. No one should have to face that. Why should government policy oblige me to put my life at risk just looking in the back of my own trailer? It's got to be resolvable by people who are paid quite a lot and have a lot of power to do smart things. Well, they're not doing something smart, and they haven't done anything smart for 20 years. They just let it ride. They just let it go. Let the police on the ground deal with it, and the truck drivers and the residents and the ferry terminal operators, and go. When I was, I'm laughing because it's so silly that a road that leads into a port is festooned with razor wire, 20-foot high fences, guard dogs and their handlers everywhere, multiple checks just to drive across a 12-mile stretch of water. Well, to get a truck across a 12-mile stretch of water. People talk about the impediments to trade from Brexit. Well, this isn't an impediment to trade. There are truck drivers from other countries who simply won't come to Britain. There are British truck drivers who won't do the job because of this problem. And it's been going on for so long. This is a thing. If it had just started, yes, we can't think of a solution, and we might have one in a year or 6 months or 2 years, maybe. It's just in a certain period. But 20 years, come on, it's got to be resolvable. And it's quite clear that if they can't make it, they won't come. Okay. The reason they are showing up, the reason they're jumping on lorries, is because they know they can get away with it sometimes, and all they need is sometimes. The French won't take them away. The French won't take them back to the border that they crossed from. Well, where did you come from? Spain, right? Okay, we're driving you back to the Spanish border. Off you go, because of course they're breaking the law there. It's a dodgy situation. There was a Romanian truck driver killed in France last year. He was in his cab one night at 3 a.m. In a rest area. He wasn't going to the UK. He was actually coming from the UK on his way to Spain. He was with his wife in the cab. He went to inspect what was going on. When he got there, there were 2 Iraqi Kurds, it turned out to be. They stabbed him and killed him. He bled to death in his wife's arms. This is a proper full-on horror show. They were both Iraqi immigrants. They weren't trying to smuggle themselves in. They were trying to steal from the load. One of them was there legally. The other had been deported, I understand. He'd made a claim for asylum. It hadn't been granted. He was done for firearms offences previously, and was given a prison sentence in France, and was let out again, and clearly was still living in France. You hear stories like this, and then you read books like Douglas Murray's Strange Death of Europe, and go, yeah, we're not just Britain, but in Europe, we're kind of, it's so difficult, isn't it? You get accused of being racist. Oh, everyone needs a chance. Yeah, but that Romanian truck driver needed a chance to live. We all need a chance to park safely. We're moving the goods around a continent. We're keeping the economy going. And this shouldn't be happening. And if that Iraqi hadn't been allowed to stay illegally in Europe, maybe that driver, well, almost certainly that driver would still be alive. Yes, there are other criminals, of course, but why import some? And as I said before, we don't actually know who these people are. If we're going to find the deserving cases, and I served in the military in Iraq, I had interpreters and so on, and yes, I can understand people like that needing to be granted asylum, but why are we just letting everyone in? Anyway, I shouldn't have to be dealing with this, and no one driving around Europe should do. Anyway, bye.